Elizabeth Puranam joins me now live from New Delhi. Liz, so Narendra Modi has spoken about the deaths of these soldiers. What's he had to say?
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the deaths of the 20 soldiers will not be in vain. He also said that the sovereignty of India is the most important thing and that India wants peace, but that it's capable of what he called a befitting reply if instigated. He's also called for a meeting of all the major political parties on Friday to discuss this situation. He's held meetings with defence chiefs already and also with his own cabinet ministers. And we've had high-level military talks taking place between India and China in the Galwan Valley where the clashes happened on Monday. We've heard from China's foreign ministry, which has said that it's open to communication, but its comments aren't going to be well received in India because it's also said that the sovereignty of the Galwan Valley belongs to India. Well, that is going to be come as a surprise to many in India. Defense experts say that China is expanding its territorial claims, and the Ministry of External Affairs had said that China was trying to unilaterally change the status quo during de-escalation efforts in the region of eastern Ladakh. We know that both sides had increased their military presence in the region following skirmishes in May that Indian defense experts were accusing China of encroaching into Indian territory. And they had been asking the government what it was doing about it. Well, the government had been holding talks with China, with both sides saying that they have the diplomatic channels in place to resolve any border disputes through dialogue, and yet we have reports, these 20 deaths in fact confirmed, at a time when the Indian government was assuring the public that it had the situation under control. But now there are a lot of questions about whether in fact it does, and a lot of pressure calls for India to act against China.
Okay, Liz, so there's this possible pressure facing the government. Might India be keen to de-escalate, though, given this imbalance in military power, or perhaps other reasons as well?
So if you look at what Narendra Modi had to say, that the death of the 20 soldiers is not going to be in vain, and also that, you know, they're capable of a befitting response if they're provoked, well, it doesn't seem like he wants to de-escalate from that. And again, he is under a lot of pressure. There are protests out on the streets. They are small. There are still restrictions on the number of people who can gather, but there have been protests in lots of cities around the country, including outside the Chinese embassy, by army veterans calling for action against China. There's the hashtag boycott China and boycott Chinese products is trending on Twitter. India has a very nationalist media, and they're all calling for action against China. And again, India is not going to respond well to the Chinese foreign ministry statement either, because again, they were calling for communication, but they're really blaming India for everything that happened. And as I mentioned, defense experts here say that claiming the sovereignty of the Galwan Valley, the entire sovereignty of that, well, that's new, and that's not part of China's territory.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth Puranam there live from New Delhi. Katrina Yu has more now from the Chinese capital, Beijing.
China says it's in close communication with India via both diplomatic and military channels. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian spoke to the media today on Wednesday and said that both sides were intent on resolving this dispute through peaceful dialogue, and that China did not want to see any further clashes. At the same time, Zhao Lijian laid the blame for the deadly brawl on Monday solely at the feet of India. According to Beijing, the two sides actually reached a consensus on the border dispute on June 6th, but Indian troops violated this consensus, and he said they provoked and attacked Chinese personnel. He also went on to urge the Indian military to discipline its troops. He went on to say further that the location where this altercation took place, the Galwan Valley, he said that this was and has always been Chinese territory, something that's heavily disputed by India. And he said that clearly it was clear that who was on the right and the wrong side of this clash that resulted in the deaths of those soldiers on Monday. Now, according to Indian media, there were Chinese casualties as well, but the Chinese government is yet to release any numbers, and there is some speculation that they may never release these numbers. State media here are saying that this is in fact a sign of goodwill from Beijing, an example of Beijing wanting to pursue peace with India and not wanting to spark any confrontational sentiment that may lead to all-out conflict.